Guys of a Certain Age is brought to you by no one. Absolutely no one. Except these dudes walking down memory lane. Now let's head to the studio to see what they misremember next.
Thanks for joining us for a special episode of Guys of a Certain Age. It's our all regrettable segment. Yes, even though they're all kind of regrettable, this one is a whole episode featuring nothing but regrettable segments and features Art Shirley and Jay Reed. And now, here with the regrettable segment, Mr. Regrettable himself, Jay Reed.
I think I thank you. I am not 100% sure, but we are going to dive.
That guy?
Who was that? Yeah, we hired a third person.
Yeah,
Robbie's not
right.
here today. Mm-hmm. He's in the Great Northwest, I believe. But so we're going to just dive in here because I've been waiting for this one. This is a cool one.
Yeah, we haven't been able to get to these. Of course, we haven't been together, and we finally decided, even with Robbie out, we're going to have to go ahead and do these. I always enjoy the regrettable segments, and so I'm glad we're getting to do these.
Yeah, well, Robbie kept saying, well, let's wait till we're all together, and we're still waiting.
So our votes, maybe we should do a coin flip for Robbie, or we could get his wife, Bonnie, in here to see what she thinks. So maybe all regrettable.
All right, so this one his name is Spyman.
Spyman.
Created by Joe Simon and Jim Steranko.
Okay.
And Joe, just remember that name, Joe Simon. We're going to come back to that later.
Well, we've talked about Joe Simon before,
right. Mm-hmm.
Creator of Captain America with Jack Kirby.
Yeah, and he's also had a couple of regrettables already.
Yes, he has, yeah.
So. And
Jim Steranko is a very talented illustrator, comic book artist or whatever that had a very interesting career, just a really real artist in terms of comic book artist.
So do you think Joe Simon was the creator, the writer?
Yeah, Joe was the writer. He was the author guy. If you look at later combinations, Stan Lee, although people, question how much he actually wrote compared to, but Stan Lee would typically pair with an artist, most often Joe Kirby, but also Steve Ditko when he created Spider-Man. Okay. And then there were some others, after Joe got so much work he couldn't do it. Fantastic Four was Joe and Stan. And again, a lot of that's coming from what Joe did. So, I think we've talked before about some of the credit Stan Lee gets, and I'm not willing to take any credit away from him yet, but so Joe in this case was the writer, the creator of the thing, or he created this with the artist as well. But Jim Steranko is the illustrator.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is created by Joe. This will, like I say, his name will come up again as the episode.
And this is Spyman.
Spyman. Debuted in Spyman #1. This was a Harvey comic, September of '66. This will actually be our last one in the Silver Age, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
It's hard to believe even as long as this is stretched out that we're already about to enter the Bronze Age.
Yeah, we're getting close to the end of the book here. I can't believe it. Well, we'll definitely be close by the end of the day.
3 years later, and we're finishing. But Harvey
later.
Comics, where Richie Rich and Casper and
okay, well, I knew I recognized the name, but I couldn't make that connection.
Yeah.
So Spyman, let's get a little bit to the origin story. He is a secret agent of sorts. His name is Johnny Chance. He worked for a counterintelligence organization known as Liberty. And apparently Liberty was an acronym, but you never find out what it means. So it's just Liberty. So he was in the process of disarming a nuclear bomb that enemy agents had set up. Saved thousands of lives, but when he reached in that radioactive core, it ruined his left hand. However, in the process of ruining his left hand, the radioactivity also sort of altered his chemistry, cellular structure. So, and this is the part I don't understand, it says it allowed a miracle surgery that would have otherwise failed. So he wakes up with a cybernetic left hand packed with gadgets. Okay. Never heard of this one, I guess.
Oh, no. I didn't recognize that name at all.
Okay, so Spyman.
Sounds like Inspector Gadget, though.
It's going to be a little bit like that. So he's got this one electro robot hand. I'm showing my right hand, but it's his left. So on this hand, he's got an X-ray probe, a recording device. I don't know how that helps, but I guess if you're a spy, you got to record things. An electro blast unit. One finger can emit a black ray, which is a beam of pure darkness. And this is the fun part. If one of those fingers doesn't quite do the trick, he's got a pouch with spare fingers.
Okay. This sounds a little familiar to me. It almost sounds like a toy.
Right. So, well, it could be. I mean, can you imagine what I don't know if you've seen some of these AI, action figure things going around on Facebook.
Yeah, oh yeah. In fact, we've had people at work that have done several of those, and if you look, some people have them posted on their door.
Yeah. So this would be a great one of those. So their headquarters are in. And it didn't really tell you what the spare fingers are, just that he's got a.
Though I'm sure they're whatever he needed at the time, right? They wouldn't list them; they'd just be whatever they are.
I think you're probably right. So we've got. Let's see. Their headquarters is in the Statue of Liberty, which goes with their name. And the funny thing is, they said, how are they?
Let's see what it looks like.
Oh, that's
Okay.
I think he's saving the world. Here. Maybe that's where he's getting his. He's got his hand in a bomb here, so that may be the one where he got his powers. But anyway, they work out of the torch in the Statue of Liberty, or at least where the helicopters go in and out, and nobody seems to notice. He has a red skin-tight bodysuit, so not very spy-ish.
Yeah, you would think he would be a little bit more like Nick Fury or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. He's not trying to hide it all. So we've got, let's see, ID Machine, Cyclops, Whisperer, are some of his villains, and you got Evil Eye Society. And this is funny, too. Mirage is a group, and it's the Empire of Guerrilla Assassination, Revenge, and International Menace.
Okay.
So the acronym is backwards.
Okay.
But I guess Mirage sounds better than Igarim.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, that great art, great creator, but only made 3 appearances.
Yeah.
And
what year did this come out?
This was 66.
Okay, 66. All right, Jim Steranko actually took over. Nick Fury used to be World War II comic book, Nick Fury and his Howling Commandos. Okay. And they changed him to Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and took him and put him in charge of this, super spy organization. And Jim Steranko was the artist for that and one of the creative forces. So I think he was given a whole lot of free rein in creating that. I'm not sure how much. I know if he, I want to say he wrote it too, but it may have just been he had the creative stuff and they actually had a writer that did dialogue. But he was the force behind that and gave it a look that you had not seen in comics before. He was very much a graphic designer and brought in different elements and things. Kirby had done some things, experimented with some stuff, but Steranko did that too. Steranko still is out there, has a regular tweet thread that he does every Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, and just a guy. He's if Neil Adams was, accused a lot of times of having a super inflated ego. Well, Steranko's right there with him. And but again, one of those that can back it up with the true talent. Mm-hmm. So I think whatever he was not able to do on Spyman in terms of the gadgets and that kind of stuff, he did on
brought in with
Kirby. Yeah, and Kirby may have done the initial stuff with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but Steranko's the one that really kind of elevated it to this status where it's iconic.
Okay. I mean, it seems like a kind of a cool thing. I mean, to me, this is...
as far as regrettable, I would say no, it's not regrettable.
Yeah, no.
I don't even think this is... what are our 3 categories again?
Regrettable, not regrettable, and redeemable?
Redeemable. I think this is just not regrettable.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no... I mean... I could see this happening. I mean,
the pouch with the extra fingers is a little weird.
Yeah.
But in the headquarters is, you have to figure out the whole.
Mm-hmm. But you see some of this with the $6 million man, not with the gadget hands so much, more with the toys as opposed to the actual TV series. You see, we talked about Inspector Gadget, so you see these kind of things.
True.
So yeah, I'd say not regrettable.
Yeah. So as far as the book is concerned, and just a reminder, we're looking at the League of Regrettable Superheroes put together by Jon Morris. And I was looking in the back of the book earlier today. Apparently he's got I did not check this, so it may be out of date, but he's got a blog called Gone and Forgotten. So I'm wondering if maybe that's kind of where this started. I'll check that out later and report back. But this is the last one in the book. It's the last of the Silver Age. So we're heading into what he calls
the modern age.
The modern age, 1970 to present, but also says that some people consider the Bronze Age from 70 to mid-'80s maybe, and then mid-'80s.
Yeah, 70s, mid-'80s, probably around the time that The Dark Knight came out, Frank Miller's Dark Knight came out, probably maybe a little bit before that. You see a rise of independent comics that kind of takes things away from the big 2 publishers. You start to see those things. So I think that is where a lot of people separate the Bronze Age from what is called the Modern Age. And I think there's probably another age after that we're in probably now. I don't know.
Seems like we would.
Yeah,
be.
because that's a long stretch. It's about 50 years of stuff, and most of the ages of the comics are not in that. So I prefer the Bronze Age. Bronze Age is probably my favorite. And 70s to I think early to mid 80s. Again, I kind of think of Frank Miller's.
Kind of a short period.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so that's why I guess people can consider the Modern Age. But there are very different styles and approaches that have happened over the past, couple of decades that, to me, separate the Bronze Age from the rest of it.
Well, it seems to me, too, that why do you even have a gold and a silver if you don't have a bronze?
Right. Why would you not?
You need the bronze.
Why would you not call the whole Modern Age the Bronze Age?
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to see. Well, we won't see the difference in the two bronze and modern, but it's going to get real different here in just a bit.
Okay. All right, this has been Jay's Regrettable Segment. Yes, Jay's Regrettable Segment. Today brought to you by Amazon, now featuring Price Breakdown. See how much is the actual price, how much is a tariff, and how much Jeff is spending to send Katy Perry to space. Yes, Amazon, the sponsor today for this segment of Jay's Regrettable Segment. We'll be right back after this. Now it's time for the second Jay's Regrettable Segment. Yes, Jay's Regrettable Segment, this time brought to you by Snoop Dogg's Fashizzle Arthritis Cream. Ease your pain with Fashizzle Cane. Who knows more about joints than Snoop Dogg? Yes, Snoop Dogg Fashizzle Cane Arthritis Cream. Today's sponsor of Jay's Regrettable Segment. And now here's Mr. Regrettable, Jay Reed.
All right, I just can't compete with that. That's for shizzle cane.
As a pharmacist,
I'm going to look that up.
I may have to make a mock label for that.
Market that. Mm-hmm. All right. So the first one in the Bronze/Modern Age that we're going to cover. This one I'm going to show Art the picture here. I know y'all can't see it.
Oh, that looks like Jim Lee.
It's a little bit wild. His name is Adam-X the X-treme.
Okay.
He is a half alien. Are you familiar with this dude?
No, but he's part of X-Force, so I'm familiar with X-Force.
All right, so this is Fabian, I'm going to butcher this name, Fabian Nicizia. Why don't you try that?
See.
Fabian Nicizia?
Yeah, you did as well as I could have done, if not better. And Tony Daniel.
yeah, thanks. Fabian the Shizzle.
Yeah. And looking at the artwork for this, I can tell this is after Jim Lee, who is now with DC and has been for many years now. But he was at one point the house artist for Marvel, and everybody kind of copied his look. And so, especially with the X-Men or the X-Force type of things, there were a whole bunch of X-Men comics at this point. When did this one come out?
This was 1993. Yeah, these next few are going to jump back and forth with the dates. But so the X-Force Annual #2.
This is when there was a heavy emphasis on variant covers and trying to make things collectible that may not have otherwise been collectible. Okay. So you had a lot of marketing things going on with this. And again, Jim Lee had kind of established the look. Rob Liefeld is in there at Marvel doing stuff. They had both come from an independent company, and Marvel hired them away to do that. I can't remember if it was Image or Malibu. But anyway, and I should know that, but I don't. Anyway, so tell us about Adam-X.
Yeah, this is a Marvel. Dude was a half alien, half mutant rebel from space, which is fascinating because this rebel from space, part of his outfit is a backwards baseball cap. So
that's how how he knows he's rebellious.
Yeah. So that's exactly. He's got long blonde hair. He's got a soul patch on his chin. Kind of got some. I don't know. Looks like a couple of ponytails wrapped in leather. He's a rad looking dude.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Made even radder by the razor sharp knives that are
come out
all
of his
over
shoulders.
And they're everywhere. They're on his shoulders. He's got it wrapped around his arm, on his forearm, his legs, and there's some sort of, I can't even say it. Maybe you can say that one. Fetj.
I don't know.
Fetj blades, some kind of double bladed hooks that he wielded. Here's the thing. This is what I really like about this character. It's very unique because obviously cutting was part of his, just all the weaponry, he wanted to cut. But once he got someone cut, he had the ability to ignite the blood.
Really?
So if he had an open wound with blood, he could ignite it on a mental command. So like literally make your blood boil.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I guess that was the purpose of all the blades, because if you get you cut, then you're done. It's not just a cut, you're going to boil at that point. So I don't know how long this guy lasted. Didn't talk about really who the villains were that he was fighting against, whoever X-Force fought against, I guess. Just talked about his blades, and I think it didn't even say how many how many appearances he made. But pretty cool looking. I mean, I think you could do something with that.
I think he's cool.
I wouldn't call it regrettable, except for the whole backwards baseball cap thing is kind of goofy.
Probably what they would do if they brought this character back, say he becomes part of the MCU or whatever, they're going to update his costume to be something that's not quite as tied into that 90s
era
look.
Well, exactly. I think that's kind of, they did kind of talk about, they compared him to Cable.
Yes, and that's the thing I wonder is the only thing that I think might make him regrettable or redeemable at best would be that there's a character already that's more widely known that's he's very similar to.
And it mentions names that you mentioned. Cable's co-creator Rob Liefeld. Yeah, left to form Image.
Yeah, that's what it was. Generally, they went to Image. They went and left the Image.
So that's when this guy was created. It's kind of make up for what those guys took with them. It sounded like so. Yeah, so that's. I mean, it was kind of. They made it sound like it was kind of the intro to this sort of character with a bunch of weapons and that kind of stuff from space. So not much more to tell on him. But I do like the soul patch. I had a soul patch for a little while.
Did you really?
Yeah, mine was gray.
Patch.
Mine was gray,
okay.
not blonde. Yeah, but anyway, all right.
All right, so. Maybe that segment should have been Gillette razors, and, keeping your soul patches or whatever. But I guess we're going to move on to the.
We're going to move on to the next one.
Okay.
Yep.
It's time once again for Jay's Regrettable segment. This is segment number 3 in this episode for those of you keeping score. And Jay's Regrettable segment this time is brought to you by Sanders Bar. Yes, the prime spot where all the beer's on tap, but the draft may take a little while to get to you. Yes, Sanders Bar. Remember to ask for the Shador Special, where the 5th round is on the house. Sanders Bar, the prime spot for drinking. And now, here's that drinker we all know and love, Jay Reed, Mr. Regrettable himself.
Man. Speaking of man, Holo-Man. Have you heard of Holo-Man?
Just the movie.
Holo-Man.
Okay.
Like as in hologram or.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now this one, okay, here's the cool thing about this one. It is a comic, but let's see, creator was Vincent Fusco and Donald Kaysen.
Okay, I've heard of Fusco.
1978, Peter Pan Records.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, so here's the backstory. Peter Pan Records had a bunch of stories, and so basically you'd get a book and a record, and you could listen to the story while reading the book. So the idea was that you'd recognize the words, as you're learning to read, I guess, and that kind of stuff. So they licensed a bunch of characters: Spider-Man, Batman, Man-Thing, Metamorpho. It'd have music and sound and special effects and all that kind of stuff going on. But Holo-Man was their very first original character.
Okay.
The backstory is fuzzy. Or complicated, I guess would be the better word. James Robinson, a laser physicist, he was hosting the President of the United States at some sort of top-secret government laser lab. Saboteurs strike, as they tend to do in these situations, and he's demonstrating a fuel source that is powered by lasers, and the laser equipment blows up. So he's able to save the President, and somehow he disintegrates himself.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, another little miracle. But when he disintegrates, his body or his, molecules go into a life-size holographic plate that happens to be nearby. So his I don't even know the word. His essence, his whatever, is in this holographic plate. He's shunted into another dimension, basically, something called a mind aura. This is really, It's really
I am
convoluted.
not familiar with this character at all.
He's
And
convoluted. There's a good reason.
Okay, Peter Pan, you said, was 78. But when was this guy coming out?
Well, that's when he came out in 78. Yeah.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay, because he was the first. You said he was
yeah.
the first.
Yeah.
Wow.
The first original character from.
Okay,
from
so why
Peter
is he
Pan.
in the why is he in the modern age?
Well, 70s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bronze Age.
Okay, that's right. That's what I was thinking. We made the cutoff, but they did not. So yeah,
Like I said, it goes back and forth. Yeah, the other
that's
guy
right.
was
Okay,
93,
I
but
got
this
you.
is
So we're not going in chronological order
not
with
exactly.
the characters.
No,
Yeah, okay,
no.
gotcha.
We're going in page number order
Yeah,
as it comes to me.
using the table of contents, as
Right.
it were. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, he goes into this thing. He meets someone named Laser Man who gives him all these powers, controlled by a holodisk from a future time dimension. I mean, it just gets thicker and thicker, and you're not sure what's going on. So he's going to be the first living hologram, and it just says your abilities are awesome, but it doesn't really say what they are. And you'll engage the forces of evil. Anyway, so what's kind of fascinating about this is it came with a poster, and on the poster it's got Laser Man, Laser Woman, it's got Holo-Man, it's got Wavelength, which is like a kid who has apparently a parrot and a raccoon as pets, and then Utopia, who's kind of looks like a queen. And then you have this guy dressed in purple with lightning bolts. Right. We never find out who that is. We think maybe it's an enemy, but in we being me reading this book. But he's never identified, and basically this is a one record operation.
Okay.
So there's one record, and I guess what makes it even funnier is there was this huge cliffhanger. He was fighting the Surians, right? Okay. Surrians, which if you jumble those letters around, it's Russians.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But the Surians had sent some holographic. No. Had blasted DC with a bunch of holographic missiles, and we don't still in 2025. We still don't know what happened to DC because the cliffhanger is still hanging.
Oh, gosh. And I see looking at the page in the book, he's talking to Jimmy Carter.
Is that Carter? Okay, I was trying. Yeah, I mean he's kind of redheaded, but
yeah. I mean the color
that would have been about the right year.
Yeah, I mean that's they never call him that by name. I don't think they do. They just call him Mr. President. And but it's supposed to look a little bit like Carter, like the hair's redder than you would think it would have been.
It does. I was my first thought was Bill Clinton, but
me too. I thought Bill Clinton, but yeah, this is 78, so certainly wouldn't have been him. And Reagan's not in office until 80, so
right.
this is when Carter would have been there.
Right. So yeah, in this little segment of panels here, he somehow holograms himself into the White House, and the president is what's going on, and acknowledges he was saved by the brave physicist named Dr. Robinson.
But basically, the holograph or the hologram that he is just to transport him somewhere because he becomes solid. It looks like.
I guess. I mean, it talks about he's got powers of invisibility. I was wrong. It does tell you some of his powers. Invisibility, illusion making, and molecular teleportation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, we got the cliffhanger. We've got the poster with all the other characters that we don't know who they are yet. We got the purple shirted guy with the lightning that we don't know, but there was no more records.
Yeah.
I think I'd be curious to know. I need to check eBay later and see it. I'm not going to buy it, but I'm curious to know if it was there.
You'll have 5 of them by the time the day is over. Yeah.
Well, one of our later characters that we're going to get to in a minute, I did look and find some comics available. So,
well, the Peter Pan stuff, if I remember, you had a lot of DC and Marvel characters as well. They would come with like a little comic book that you read along. I'd be shocked
if I didn't have some Peter Pan stuff at home.
And if I remember correctly, maybe it was not Peter Pan making these at the time, but it would have been around the same time period, so it's hard for me to believe they didn't. But you had a little 45, a piece of vinyl for those listening that don't know what that is, which I can't imagine anybody is. And then they had this follow-along comic book with it. And the comic books would be done, a lot of times Neil Adams did the comic books through his one of his ad agency kind of projects. Okay. So, he would
Well, it did say that they used Batman, Spider-Man. I mean, they did have some major characters that they licensed.
Yeah. So that's where these were then, so you'd see this. And I remember, like I said, I know that somewhere along the line I've had some. I wonder if I still have them somewhere in a box somewhere.
And I was in what was formerly my closet at my mother's house the other day, and there's a a set of shelves that have a bunch of books, and I'm just betting there's some Peter Pan stuff in there.
Cool.
So anyway, I think regrettable.
Yeah.
I mean, his uniform, he's like he's described as having a bad accident in a tie-dye factory.
Yeah.
It's just
really,
terrible.
It doesn't look good.
That part looks good. His face, the look sort of mask that comes up.
His face has the mask that kind of like
what do you call that?
It's
not a cowl.
It is a cowl, but it's a partial cowl. You don't
headless.
because you don't have the top of the head. Kid Flash, for those of y'all that know, it looks a lot like Kid Flash's cowl.
Okay.
I always liked that look. Of course,
well, this panel he looks great. It's the other panels where you can actually see the rest.
The problem with that mask is you're exposing even more of your face and head to make you more recognizable. So you already see a lot of area around his eyes, most of his nose, all of his rest of his face. You don't see the sides, but and all of his hair. So I think you could start to put together who this guy is.
But the president does not recognize him.
Does not recognize him. And of course, if he's got this power, if he's basically just a hologram, does he really need a mask? But the rest of the suit looks a little bit like one of those rainbow pops.
Yeah.
And his power set, his skill set or powers that he has, other characters have things similar to that, being able to transport in and out or turn yourself into something that's, you kind of break down and reform somewhere else. So you see that, other places too. So let me look at the cover again, because that looks fairly modern.
It's a different art though. I mean,
it's like a painting. And is that it? So I was thinking that was Dr. Strange back there.
It looks a lot like Dr. Strange.
But
that was my first
thought. The cover
too.
art is really, well done in terms of a painting.
Yeah.
It's kind of, they're kind of standing in space, which is a little odd. I mean, they've got this guy that's clearly derived from Dr. Strange, and is that the character? What was the?
This is the one that was not named.
Okay, he's not the laser.
There's another laser man that kind of looks like Gandalf.
Okay, yeah. I saw that. It kind of reminded me of Shazam from Captain Marvel, Shazam stuff. Okay, all right. So we're saying regrettable for that. I think Robbie would be with us on that one too.
I think we can chalk that up to 3 votes there.
We have a time for another segment?
I do.
Okay, good. Yes, I would say we do. Okay, so it's time for Jay's Regrettable segment. Yes, Jay's Regrettable segment, this time brought to you by the Retro Glow Boombox, the official boombox of guys of a certain age. As gifted to us by Robbie Koblenz, the Retro Glow Boombox has a cassette player, an AM/FM stereo radio involved, and flashing lights. Just the kind of thing guys need to be completely distracted from whatever else they were doing. It comes with a rechargeable battery, but also has a D-battery cell set that you can use if you want to be completely nostalgic. Yes, the Retro Glow cassette thing. Cassette thing. I think that's exactly what the box says. Yes. Cassette thing. I don't know who that was laughing, but yes, the cassette boombox.
Yes, I've been enjoying mine, and I think I'm going to skip ahead one just because our time is limited today, and I'm really curious about this one. This one is it's a group. It's called The Outsiders.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted to do this one is because there have been multiple groups called The Outsiders. Yeah. So, unfortunately, the picture here doesn't show who they are. But if you Google Outsiders 1976 comic, then you'll get this.
Okay.
If you just Google the Outsiders comic, then you're going to get Batman.
Yes, because that's the one I'm familiar with, Batman and the Outsiders.
Batman and the Outsiders. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is a completely different group.
Okay.
All right, so this came along. This is a group of mutants. They all look very strange. Not the X-Men, though. So this is, let's see.
It's not the Metal Men, is it?
Not the Metal Men.
Okay, the silhouettes, the shadows looked like they were the Metal Men.
And the shadows sort of vaguely resemble who they are. So let's. I forgot to do the whole creator thing. This is another Joe Simon.
Okay.
And Jerry Grandinetti.
Don't know him.
Okay. This was in first issue special number 10, DC, January 76.
Right.
All right. So you've got here's the team. First was the Amazing Ronnie. He's a 4-armed, green-skinned Cyclops.
That sounds familiar to me for some reason.
Okay. Lizard Johnny, squinting, bespectacled frogman who could regrow damaged limbs.
Okay.
Then you have the immensely strong Mighty Mary. Mighty Mary is a gorgeous blonde pretty much from the neck up, but on her arms and legs are thick and covered in fish scales.
Okay.
So
of course they are.
Yeah, and then you got Harry Larry, also known as the Wheeler Dealer, who says he's bonded to the truck that transports him around, so I guess he's the driver or something. And then there's another one that kind of comes along later, and his name is Billy the Big Head, or Big-Headed Billy. Let's see if I wrote it down here. Billy the Big-Headed Boy. And I think they say
Billy the Big-Headed Boy.
Billy the Big-Headed Boy. So he's someone that they go to save at some point. I guess he becomes part of the team. So they their leader is a guy named Old Doc Scary.
Old Doc Scary.
Fright face
Old Doc
cyborg.
Scary.
Yeah, so he's kind of brought the team together. He was in space. He was investigating alien laser signals, and he crashed on this world. I think I read it was Venus at somewhere on the internet, where the alien signals had been coming from. So he crashed, and he's rebuilt by the extraterrestrials there, who give him really. I keep running this word cybernetic. Is that like robotic?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So he's got cybernetic hands that can do these really intricate surgeries,
Yes.
et cetera. But he's got a hideously disfigured face.
Okay.
So my wondering is, maybe it looks disfigured to us, but on the world where he was rebuilt,
probably so.
he
Yeah,
probably
it was okay.
fits right in. You know, who knows something. So this is interesting because we talked about another hero way back by the name of Jigsaw.
Yes. I
Which
remember that.
that
was the guy that,
looked like a puzzle.
yeah, and it would like, instead of stretching, his arm would just come apart, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But I think it was a similar story where he had crashed and burned, and they rebuilt him in a very odd way. I know, but Joe Simon kind of coming back on that.
Yeah.
So.
And you do see a lot of ideas, just successful or unsuccessful, recycled, throughout comic book creators. Because at the time, nobody, they figured the comic book they did 2 years ago had already been long since thrown away, and nobody's keeping these things. And then you've got a pretty much whole new audience looking at it. So
that makes sense. So anyway, the doc has, he has all these freaks hanging. Well, he's got a headquarters 20 stories below the hospital where he works. And by the way, he does have he does wear a mask that makes him look like his old self.
Okay, gotcha.
And the disfigured face is underneath. And it says, basically just says the team didn't last, but DC did repurpose the name later. But when I look at the images of the characters, because like I said, here it's just the shadows of them, and I'm sure this is Mighty Mary here. You can kind of it's the only woman. That's the cyborg.
Yeah,
this guy actually looks kind of like Frankenstein, but I don't.
He looks a little more like Frankenberry.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That's the big head boy, I guess.
Yeah.
No,
no.
The big head boy's on the right.
No, he's not in this picture.
Oh, okay.
No, but because he's a boy. He's short.
He's actually okay.
He's
gotcha.
actually a boy. Yeah,
Okay.
but if I would encourage you to Google the images.
So the images are not in the book here.
Yeah, you got to be specific. Outsiders, 1976, and anyway, I think this would be a great. I couldn't remember the name. What's the name of that show that Max did recently?
The Doom Squad.
No, the kind of spoof. It was a character. Robbie really liked it, and I think he said something. Heck yeah, a lot.
Oh yeah. Birdman? No. Kite Man.
Kite Man.
Yeah.
So in the spirit of Kite Man, this could be redeemed as kind of maybe a kid focused.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of silly looking. You got a frog and you got a cyclops, and I mean they do kind of look like your Universal monsters in a way. But I think this could be a fun one.
I think I combined two things. You've got the Doom Patrol, which was a Max series. It's another thing of misfit folks. You've got Robot Man and several other folks that kind of fit into this genre. And then you've got Suicide Squad, a couple of iterations of that in movies that we've seen. And so, that kind of fits into that too. So if you wanted to take something, like you said, and do something completely different for an animated series where it does, and I think it would lend itself well.
Yeah, I think animated would be better for this.
So I think that might work out real well. Yeah. Maybe come up with a slightly different name from them so they're not the outsiders. Or maybe that's part of the running gag is they have to, always, do you know Batman? We're not those outsiders. That could be kind of a funny thing.
And it did say they have a theme song, but it has something to do with
Have a theme song.
"Hang in there, Billy. It's us. We're the outsiders."
Oh,
and
see,
then
that's Scott. I
they
mean,
they sing it before introducing each member.
In any other context, I would say regrettable, but I think this is absolutely not regrettable if you did it like that. Certainly redeemable. Maybe that's what we want to get at. Yeah,
absolutely redeemable. And I think you should be the one to draw it.
Oh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? That would be a lot of fun. I need to go look these characters up, see what they look like. I want to say something about the first issue special that this is featured in. First issue special was an anthology series that DC did, and what they did was they used it. If you notice, it's called First Issue Special, and this is number 10. So the idea was you would feature a different group of heroes or a hero, sometimes some of the B-listers or whatever, and try to see if there was a way, if there was enough interest in it to launch its own comic book series. Only 2 of them did that. Mike Grell's The Warlord, which was one of my favorite books from the 70s. It draws a lot from Edgar Rice Burroughs' Pellucidar series in that it's a hollow earth kind of thing. But he admits he ripped off a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs ideas with that. But it's a fun book, and also they said Return of the New Gods, which was a concept that Jack Kirby came up with, and they went back then. And both of those got series runs. But some of the other characters that they featured included, I just had it right here, Metamorpho, who's going to be in the new Superman movie, Manhunter, who I think this one is the one that Walt Simonson came up with.
Now these are the new outsiders, or
no? These are
people that appeared in this first issue special.
Yeah, first issue special. Every one that came out was a completely different writer and artist team, and they were using it. It was kind of like a pilot for TV shows. So this was a comic book pilot, and if there was enough positive reaction to it, they would give it a run. And both.
Because I was thinking in the list of Batman's outsiders that Metamorpho might have been one of those.
I think
right?
I'm trying to remember if he was or not. I know he's been in a team with Batman before, so he may have been. I can't remember. I can picture Geoforce. There, several people that were in there, and he may have been. I think they did have an old school guy in there. But you had Dr. Fate. You had the Creeper, who was one of my favorite characters. You had a New Gods. Again, that's the one that was picked up, so that's good. Anyway, it was kind of a cool idea, I thought, on DC's part, and it was basically a way to get some of the writers and artists off of the back of the editors and go, why don't let me try this. Yeah. Well, they didn't want to commit to a full series yet. So you had this tryout kind of thing, and they would do that and see how it worked out. So, like I said,
I guess it didn't work out for them. But,
it did not work out for them. But I do think this show idea sounds like it's really good.
This might have been more of a Harvey Comics
it could have been.
feature.
Could have been. All right, good deal. Well, I appreciate that. We've still got a few more to do of these. Is that right? We're going to try.
Yeah, there's about 6 or 7 left. Yeah.
Okay.
We might get through the end of the year.
But anyway, I guess that'll do it for this episode.
All right.
Of Jay's Regrettable segment.
Do you have any more sponsors?
I don't have any more sponsors.
Because I feel very sponsored.
Yeah, I think we're as sponsored as we're going to get right now. For somebody that didn't have sponsors, I think we've got enough sponsors.
Sounds great.
All right, so next time, maybe we'll all be back together again.
Who knows?
Who knows? All right, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.